So I think the way I want to start this is we're obviously going to share our screen in a bit, and then we'll work through the Figma board, and that's where we'll jot down the ideas. But for like people watching, I just think it's a good idea just to preface this with like who we are, kind of why we decided to partner up, give us some background, and then what I can do is walk through kind of the idea that I had and why I approached you with the idea, kind of the vision that I have for the overarching company and the product. And then I sort of have like a feature brain dump that I just want to do, just like a list of things that I just think that should be in the product. And then I think we can then go through each of those ideas and really flesh them out, and you can apply kind of your thinking to what is possible, what makes sense, and go through that. So yeah, and then
Exactly, yeah.
we're gonna record these random videos just to document the process. So yeah, I mean, I'll start with myself. So I actually started out as a developer. When I was super young, I loved iPhone apps, and I always was frustrated with certain games, and I wanted to build my own. So from kind of 11 to 15, I self-taught myself various programming languages. I was an Apple student scholar for their Swift thing for a while. I published 2 games. I basically ripped off Angry Birds and called it Flying Feathers. I ripped off Cut the String, which is like another game, and called that Cannon Mechanic. And then I built a series of utilities. One of them was an insurance app. I don't want to get too much in the details, but essentially that was acquired by an insurance company in South Africa. And then I spent a full year, I don't know which year it was, probably about 2016, building one app, which I thought, I'm going to launch this. It was probably when the social network came out with Mark Zuckerberg. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to build this app, launch it, and then I'm going to be a billionaire and I'm just going to retire. And I was like 15. That was the plan. And I launched it and no one came. It's that typical thing of like build it and they will come, right? It doesn't work. You sort of need to build marketing, have a waiting list, etc. And so I launched it, no one came. I realized very quickly, this sucks. I need to learn marketing. So I needed to learn Facebook ads. Facebook ads is like math. You actually need to practice it to get good at it. There's no point of just learning it. So I needed something to sell that wasn't my app. And so that took me to dropshipping, which Daniel actually has a lot of connections and experience with, funny enough. But that took me to dropshipping. This is probably 2017, 2018. That's the first time I started making serious amounts of money. Pretty successful. So I basically ditched the app thing and just went all in on that. Moved to London, Shopify Funnel Awards. I joined the Shopify Plus board of whatever in London as well. It did quite well with that. And then I leveraged that to start an agency because I got really good at paid advertising, and then ran the agency for a couple of years. And then we started actually picking up SaaS clients in the agency as well. So it's kind of full circle, because in that 2-3 year period of running my marketing agency, I spent probably tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars on paid ads across my own stuff and our clients, because we were quite big at some point. And then it kind of came full circle, coming back to, working with SaaS clients, which is what I originally set out right in the beginning. But I was no longer a developer, but I still kind of kept my, ear to the ground, still following the trends in development and knowing what's going on. I can still code, if anyone's wondering. I'm not completely out of it. But basically, I mastered building sales teams specifically for B2B stuff, because I sold it for my agency and then for some clients. And I mastered, paid advertising. And then I started specializing, working more and more with SaaS clients, specifically because I noticed B2B SaaS clients, not B2C, but B2B, really they need a flywheel effect, which is a community / paid ads / audience. And then they need a sales team. And the reason is, if you're trying to build a proper company, you can't be selling something for 10, 20 bucks a month, right? It just doesn't, you need too many users to actually make any money. You have to do big license deals, and you need a sales team to do that. And I was uniquely equipped to, number one, build the sales teams because I'd done it so much. And number two, feed them with paid ads. So started taking on a couple of SaaS clients on a consulting basis, doing really, 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 really well with it. And that also it's kind of coming back to my roots. And so from there, I have essentially just doubled down on that, and I perfected the process over the years of scaling SaaS products. And I'm going to have a bit of a consulting info thing launching soon. But I've always had this idea that I still want to get back to what I originally wanted to do. The full circle was I built stuff, and then I learned marketing so that I could grow the stuff that I was built, but I was no longer building stuff. So I've had this idea for a SaaS in a while, and now I have all the marketing skills. I also have the capital. And I wanted to build a game, what I call like micro utility SaaSes, which we'll talk about in a bit. But I also realized, I haven't been doing development for a long time. It's not what I want to specialize in. I don't want to build a team. I don't want to go back to that. So who in my network do I know who's very, very good at this and who can bring a lot of skill sets that, are symbiotic to me, but also that I actually would enjoy working with? And Daniel and I met in Cape Town. I don't know if we met in your house or whose house we met in. We met in like some random Airbnb, I think. Or it was on a yacht. It was probably a mixture of those two.
Yeah, I think we met on the yacht, on the catamaran. I think
that was it. So both of us were on a yacht with a bunch of girls and a bunch of wine. That's how this started. In Cape Town. So I met with Daniel. He'll tell you what he does, but I was kind of thinking, I think he's the perfect partner for this. I also went through Y Combinator and a few other VC-backed programs, incubators, whatever you want to call it, over the years. And I found it interesting that YC only invests in startups that have founders. They don't invest in solopreneurs. And so I was, very clear from the beginning that I want to be with someone, and I think Daniel is the perfect partner. So I approached him with the idea. We chatted about it. And then, he's got his agency, I've got my thing. So we decided, let's document the entire thing. It's good for both of our personal brands, but also just like I haven't seen a SaaS built like this day one, documenting it properly. And I think it's going to be super valuable. So that's what we're doing. That's me. Daniel, you want to share who you are? Yeah. Why are you here?
Yeah. So my name is Daniel. I'm originally from the Netherlands. Both my parents are Dutch, but I was fortunate enough to grow up on the other side of the world, which is where I'm currently still based, and that's Asia, and specifically China. So from a very young age, I started freelancing, where I basically was dabbling around the creative field because my dad was an architect, and I, to this day, only remember him being in his office and going from the transition of physical to digital and starting to draw on a screen, and me being completely fascinated by that. And he took me to China. So I grew up with Dutch, Chinese Mandarin, a bit of Cantonese, English. So I'm quite equipped when it comes to the different languages that I possess, which is a big part of who I am and the teams that we work with global, on like a global scale. So my journey is a little, it's actually quite similar to yours, where I started off just freelancing and just trying to figure it out on my own until my mom found out that I wasn't going to school. My student account got closed down because I was taking payments for work that I was doing through a fake LinkedIn profile, which was kind of my start of the entrepreneurial journey. My dad loved it. My mom was a little skeptical about it, but that's how this whole thing started. So moved to China, actually ended up taking 1 year of computer science in China in Chinese, which for me was the kind of bridge between the design thinking and actual technical thinking. And I always explain, I love this analogy, which is a car. People don't, if you take a design team and you make them build a car, the car won't be able to drive. And if you do it the other way around, you're going to have an ugly car that is, probably going to drive, but no one wants to drive it because it looks very ugly. So I decided to also learn the actual technical part behind the things that I was designing. So that led to me starting my first software company. I ended up working with companies such as Lee and Fung, A.S. Watson. For those that don't know, they're a few of the most reputable companies here in Hong Kong. A few of them are listed amongst some of the richest companies here in Hong Kong. And they ended up acquiring one of these companies, or this actual company. Then this led me to another venture, which we had a lot of traction with as well. Ended up raising some funds, and at some point I also exited that actual venture. So I was 23 when that all happened, and that got me leading to the next step, which is what I'm currently doing. I started to figure out what do I want to do next after having seen quite some success within software, having a tremendous amount of passion between design, the whole technical aspect of everything, and having a team that's ready to jump into the next venture. I got to the point where I was looking into my network and seeing all of these great individuals, and having pretty much identified a pattern amongst me, myself, as well as the entrepreneurs that both Courtne and I have within our network, is that a lot of cash flow positive businesses and those that have communities are starting to make a software play. So I anticipated on that and created Blank Studios, which is a venture studio where we partner up with, as I always like to say, the bright minds within my network, and we give them return the unknowing into the knowing by becoming their software partners and transparently creating as much transparency around what we're going to building with me as an actual consultant, which you're going to experience live with us during this call, because I'm always the one who tries to pull back and keep things as simple as possible and just, have something to run with in as quick as 3 months. In this scenario, it's probably going to be much quicker than that. But yeah, that's kind of what we do. We have a team of well over 20 people right now that are globally distributed, portfolio of about 10 companies, and we're actually backed by the number. I'm not going to disclose the number yet because I'm still waiting on some paperwork, but one of the richest families in Asia, where yeah, so that's kind of what we do.
Awesome. So for anyone confused, basically I do the marketing, sales. Daniel's incredibly good at design personally, and then his team's really good at building cool shit. And then obviously
Exactly.
He's got a lot of interesting stuff in his background. Cool. So what I think I'm going to do now is I found this, and I think it would be a shame to not share it. But this is the actual doc that I made when I sort of presented this idea to Daniel. I'm not going to go through the entire thing, but I just wanted to quickly explain the idea, super simple, but then also just show that this is literally all I had when we started this. Daniel probably has a lot more of this than me, but a lot of people spend way too much time thinking about things and not just taking action, right? Because obviously everyone comes to Daniel with ideas, not a product, and then his job is to turn it into a product. This was my idea. This was the brief sort of that I gave him. So we could quickly talk about the SaaS that we're going to be building together and that we're partnered on. Then you can maybe talk about just from idea to execution, and then we'll get into actual Fig Jam and we'll start going through it. Okay, so I'm going to just summarize this that I presented to Daniel. Basically, I presented the notion of I want to build this simple company. My vision for this is not one SaaS, but a couple SaaSes. The SaaS that we're building is not a fully fledged SaaS. It's not going to be an Asana or Monday anything. They're going to be utilities. In other words, very quick to build, but very useful and also very cheap. The idea or the principles, and I always think it's really good to start with what are you trying to build from the core. Everyone focuses on features and nice stuff. I think it's very important to go down to what is the foundation. And the foundation is simple. One of my mentors, Sam Ovens, I'm sure pretty much anyone in the online space sort of knows him. He's really been pushing this a lot with Stool, which is just, where were the days when you used a software and it did one thing, it did it really well, and didn't have a lot of extra shit in there? The amount of times I go to a software just because I want to use it for one thing, and then they've loaded with a whole bunch of other stuff, and it's so confusing and complex. And also because they've added all this stuff, they have to charge more. My vision is to make very simple products. I want to tackle very specific problems. So the SaaS that we're going to be working on today is if you haven't seen the title, it's simplepayments.io. And it's basically every single business needs to process payments and send invoices, and then manage cash flow. And that's, every business needs to do that. It's not a new problem. We're not inventing a new product. I just think that there isn't something that can do this that well. Then also just I'm a very big design person. I don't like using products that don't look good. Daniel's really good at this as well. And I also think people underestimate the leverage in design. Design I've seen from a marketing standpoint, design has a massive influence in terms of conversion, but also perceived price. If it just looks shit, you can't charge a lot for it. There's a very, very big thing why Apple spends enormous amounts of money on design and their design language, because that is why they're perceived as a luxury brand. Louis Vuitton, all the others are the exact same thing. So it's not just about, of course it needs to be useful, but I think it needs to look good. Otherwise, if no one wants to use it, people won't use it. And then if no one likes it, they're not going to pay a lot for it. Also, I think just in today's day and age, you cannot have slow products, right? I think that should just be a bare bone thing that all SaaSes are built on. But you'll be surprised how many, I get a lot of SaaS come to me and say, hey, I'm not growing, can you help me? And I always look and I say, well, I don't know what your product is. There's too much shit going on. So I don't even know how to craft the messaging because it's not simple. It looks ugly. I don't even want to use it. So I don't know how we're going to turn it into an ad. And it's so slow. And again, every second that it takes to load and do things, especially if there's a lot of friction in the conversion path, then people just don't convert, right? And also, I believe it needs to be cheap. I think we're going through a part in our lifetime where people are suffering from subscription fatigue. Everything these days is a subscription. Most people have Amazon, Prime, Netflix, they have Hulu, they have Showmax, they have all of these long things that they pay. Most people have so many subscriptions. I think people are getting tired of subscriptions. So I think it needs to be cheap. I think we need to build a product for one person. Again, if you look at a lot of softwares, they just build very generalist products. We're very focused on one niche, one person. And then these are two things that I think are very unique. In this software world, everyone seems to think, let's raise capital and let's never make money, and let's just grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. And I think we're also changing seasons where there's a big focus on being profitable. I think, interest rates have risen and other stuff. Investors want returns. I think ClickFunnels is a good example of a bootstrap company that has actually done extremely well. So I think from the beginning, you need to set out to be profitable. And also, in software, there seems to be this constant notion of build more things all the time. I want to take a very opposite approach with this. I want to build a simple tool that essentially you build it once. Sure, you implement a little bit of updates, but you build it once and then don't build again and then just grow it over time. And then you just cash flow, therefore being profitable. Two quick examples that I had was Linear. It's a project management tool for software engineers. It's fast, it's beautiful, it's built for developers, and it's cheap. And I use these guys as an example just because it's a very, very, very competitive market that they entered into. Okay. So again, I'm going to not run through this whole document because I think it's a lot of stuff going on. I'll just draw it out when we get to the features. But that is sort of the core thing. This is the first product, but I envision a lot of utilities underneath this overarching company. So we're going to tackle payments first. Another example is signatures. Every business usually has to send contracts. And if you look at all the players out there, they're very expensive, very complicated. There's a lot going on. And so if I look at a business, what are the utilities? Communication, payments, invoices. These are all utilities, and I want to tackle each one, build the simplest product, the most beautiful, the cheapest, build it once and forget it, because really e-signatures and invoices don't change. It's the same thing. And just be super profitable with it. And I think when you roll up all of these utilities into one big company, now you have something that is massive and you have the ability to cross-sell utilities amongst each other. So yeah, this simple doc, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. What I wanted to do now is simply just share my vision, features, and then Daniel will help me walk us through how we would turn this into a product. But Daniel, do you want to maybe just give them some advice on someone coming to you with an idea? I mean, is a Google Doc enough, or what would you recommend?
I mean, it's anything is enough. I think the whole problem that majority of the people that want to get into software, which is something that I addressed just now as well, it's the unknowing. People know they want to build software, but it's the unknowing of how to do it. And the thing with software is that like how you said, people want to build simple things, but out of the 10 people that you put in a room that are building software, there's 9 of them claiming that they build simple stuff, but they're building extremely complicated stuff. And I use this analogy that really explains, what this looks like. And I always revert back to cars for some reason, but if someone walks into a dealership and he looks at a car and he's like, I want that car, and this, the salesman tells them it has a panorama rooftop, it has a nice steering wheel, very nice interior, but the car can't drive, no one's going to buy that car. And whenever you have someone, enter the software space, they always have this big, broad vision. And we try and just turn that vision into a very, very small starting point where even we have a rule of thumb. Like if something takes more than 3 months to build, it's, you're building too much. So you want to keep things as simple as possible and find out what is it that within your product makes the car drive. So whatever people throw at us, we try and we're going to do this actually on this call right now, is we're just going to really define this in its most simple form where, when you, as a founder, like even when we talk about, like the simple payments or like the product that we're going to build, there's so much to it. There's so much that you can do, making something that sounds extremely simple, extremely complicated. And it's good to store those things. It's good to write those things down. But in between the partnership between Courtne and I, you'll see that I will be very likely the one that's constantly trying to pull back on, hey, we have this, we have that idea, and just have something very simple so that within, 2-3 calls from now that everyone can follow, because that's the whole reason why we're doing this, you'll see that we have a product. Because after this call, we would have everything very clear. What are we going to build? What is it going to look like? Who's it going to help? What is the actual first way that we're going to help people? And what is this going to look like? And that's going to be taken by both me, my team, as well as in collaboration with obviously Courtne, turn into an actual definition document that the team can bite themselves into, which will also try and record as much as we can of actually designing the product and then handing that over to development.
Cool. And before we do that, just so everyone's on the same page, essentially what we're doing here is I'm just sharing the vision. Daniel and I are probably about to get into a lot of arguments around what we are building, what we're not building, I assume. We'll figure that out. And then Daniel's going to convert that into a doc. And then he has his whole development team who's going to do a lot of the development while I focus on building a pre-launch for this thing. Because in our network, we already have people probably that would want this. So we can just put up a landing page and start that marketing effort already. And then throughout the series, we're going to launch on Product Hunt, AppSumo. We're going to do all the things. Not because we really want to blow the SaaS up, just because we want to take people through the iterations. So the last thing before I just start dropping things down is I also want to say to people that it's important to find other people doing this already. I'm not, and maybe Daniel's different to me, but I don't believe in building something that no one's built before because there's probably a reason, right? Like if you're the first person to a market, that's very dangerous, especially if you don't have millions of dollars behind you. So there's two quick companies that I want to highlight. One of them is Simple Invoices, and the other one is PayFunnels. So these guys are invoicing softwares, very similar to what I am sort of wanting to do. But I just think that they've done a really bad job at it, and we can do better. But they are still making a shit ton of money doing it, which shows me that the market is there and there is a demand for the product. I just think we could do it a lot better, right? Okay, so I can see Daniel's already working on that. While Daniel is doing that, what I'm going to do is put together features. Right.
Yeah, so I'm just writing down these names of the companies so that we have those as well. What was the one called? Simple Payments, and what's the other one called?
Simpleinvoices.io, and the other is payfunnels.com. And I think also put down the pricing there. So PayFunnels is $29 a month, and Simple Invoices, I actually made an account Simple Invoices to test it out. I don't even know how much it is. It's $15 a month. So that's how much they're charging for it. And if you just look at this, like Simple Invoices is, in my opinion, just ugly. Like it's very ugly. And this is even more ugly. This is an example of just very bad UI UX, in my opinion. That we can make.
Dude, have you ever used HubSpot?
I have. I hate it.
Bro, I don't understand how people use this. Dude, it's so true that stuff just needs to look good. And I think from a design point of view, other than it looking good and being, appealing to look at, its design is really quite simple. It really comes down to, does it make sense and do I not get distracted? Especially in today's day and age. Dude, look at what my phone is looking like. There's a reason I'm doing this. Like, this is all I have on my phone. It's because I'm just constantly being bombarded with shit. Here, look at this. This is my entire phone. Nothing. Because I'm just constantly sucked into all of this bullshit that people are throwing at me. And even within these shitty applications, like, like whatever, like Simple Invoices or PayFunnels, it looks trash. And, like, I don't know where to place my eyes. It doesn't make sense. So other than it looking nice, it's also going to make a lot of sense to use. And when it then also looks good, it's just going to be, it's just going to be very satisfying to use and nice to use, which, I think especially for the new day and age of entrepreneurs is, and we'll get to this in a second, because I remember, Courtne, you and I on the last call, we spoke about that Zapier, just like having a drag and drop flow. Like, how cool would it be if you can just, if this happens, that happens with like payments, like if this customary payment fails, then we do this, we do that, etc. So just wanted to quickly jump in there as well with some examples of other ugly, shitty softwares that are massive.
And I mean, you mentioned HubSpot. I have a lot of clients who they've raised a lot of money and whatever, so they're sitting in Salesforce. Have you used Salesforce?
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
That's like 10x. Like, it's ridiculous. Even I log in there and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Like, it's even when you search for shit, it's like complicated stuff. Okay. So let's jump into this. The way that I want to do this, and again, I'm just going to spitball everything, and then Daniel can kind of take my thoughts and actually turn it into a product. I think the way that I want to do this is I'm going to do sticky notes for the features. Green things are going to be things that I think just have to be there. It's kind of like core stuff. The yellow is going to be like an in-between, and then the red is going to be things that I want, but even I agree that they're nice to have. They're not like core to the product. And then after I've just dropped all these features, then I just want to go through a couple scenarios that I would want to use the software, because I'm frustrated because every single day I'm wishing that I had this product, because it was literally today that I tried to do something and I couldn't because I didn't have this product. So I think there's some scenarios, and then from that we can see, what makes sense and what doesn't. So if we just go with the features, like what are the core things? I think the first feature that absolutely is core is basically just a proper PDF invoice plus a payment page. So what do I mean by that? If I want to bill someone consulting fees, let's say I want to charge them a $2,000 invoice, I want to be able to send them a link to a website where they can enter their stuff in and pay. But it must also generate an accompanying PDF document, because you need that for tax reasons. And also if you're trying to charge something expensive, it has to go through a whole HR operations team to get approval. Now, PayFunnels makes the funnel, the website part, but they don't do the invoice part. And Simple Invoice does the invoice part, but they don't do the funnel part. And so I think there needs to be both. And I'm envisioning like almost a model where when you create a new thing, you can choose, do you want an invoice or do you want a funnel? And I think that's super important. The next thing is Stripe only. We're not trying to be a bank here. We're not trying to do payment processing. Stripe has already perfected that. We're just going to build on top of that. And I think we should just accept Stripe. I don't think we should accept Authorize.net and PayPal and crypto and many other things, at least for now. So if you don't have a Stripe account, you can't work with us. I think that's that. That clears all the banking, all the other stuff. The next thing that I think is important is native Slack notifications. So when I say native, I basically want to know viewed, paid, and chargeback. So currently today, it's very important to know if someone has viewed your invoice and then if they don't pay it, because that tells you that they're thinking about it. Just from a sales team perspective, if someone views it and don't pay it, that is the perfect time to phone them and say, hey, what's the problem? That's when you have them. And currently I have to use Zapier with Stripe and many other things to set up this flow. I can't just do it in a software natively. And also you're going to see me mention Slack a lot. That's because the person that we're targeting here is either a consultant, info person, basically online business, right? So everyone mostly uses Slack. I don't think we need to complicate it more than that, right? So viewed is important for sales teams. Paid is important. Chargeback is important. The next thing is the ability to set up routing rules. Okay, so when I say routing rules, I'm actually going to, let me just grab one of these. And then the gray one is going to be a scenario. One of the scenarios that I have at the moment that I'm trying to solve is I want to charge 10K for 6 months. And then after that, I want to automatically charge $299 a month for a product. Okay. Currently, this is impossible to do with Stripe, and it's impossible to do with most invoicing softwares. There are workarounds. You can use Zapier. You can create a task for a human to do it. But this, if you look at this from a programming standpoint, it's basically, if you convert this into logic, when paid, start a timer for 6 months and then charge $299, wait 30 days, repeat. That's basically all the logic is here, which is very easy to achieve in code, but very difficult to do in tools, right? And then another perfect example of this is, what if I want to charge one payment of this, then I want to charge this monthly, and then I want to wait 2 months and then charge something else. Like I want to build this logic of if, else, wait commands. I think Monday has done an extremely good job of this when it comes to just building up their automations. Is just if we turn this into a sentence. When someone is creating a invoice, I want them to see a sentence when they're creating it. So there's no confusion around what are we doing. So maybe it's just send an invoice for, actually, let me make a new scenario here. Send an invoice for $200. Maybe that's the sentence, right? And this will just send a normal invoice or send a funnel for $200, right? And that will obviously do a funnel and an invoice. And that's all the sentence says. and then you can add 2x at x.com, right? I'm willing to bet this is probably someone's email address at the moment. But anyways, that is, I think, how it should look, because it's very clear what's going on here. Super, super simple. And then this would be a more advanced flow, but it's still just a sentence, right? And that's kind of how I'm envisioning building the actual thing. So if else wait commands, it doesn't need to be more complicated than that. I think in the future we can add, you know what, I'll actually do if, actually I'll do switch logic. So I think in the future we can do things where it's like, you know, if someone used this part of the product, then charge them this amount. So you can get quite complicated with payments. If they did this, then do that based on conditions. You can do calculations based on elapsed time. Like there's a lot that you can do logic wise. But
I dropped the visual.
Don't think that's
right there.
There you go. Awesome. But I don't think that's important for now. But I do think in the future that can be quite cool. The next thing is reporting by sender. By sender, by month, and by product. This sounds super simple, but you'll be amazed at, like, it's actually really hard to do this. Like Stripe gives you how much revenue you've generated, and they can break it down by time period. But what they don't do is give you the revenue by time period, by product, and also by sender. And the reason why I say sender is most big SaaS companies, their sender would either be a sales team or it would be a marketing channel. So like this person signed up through Facebook, this person signed up through Google. And if you're running an info or business, you have a sales team. And like if I go here and I look at these guys' reports, which, there we go, we've got invoices and I've got payments and I've got the currency and then I've got like totals. This is almost useless to me because all of this information I can get in Stripe as well. And PayFunnels doesn't even have reporting, right? And the Stripe reporting is all right, but what I want to know is which person sent the invoice and what are they doing on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis. I want to look at their stats. I want to see what's happening on a total level for the company. I want to see for each product what is happening. So you could add something into the statement that is like bill them the product whatever, and that we know is $200 a month. And then also basic thing I think is important is like churn, because this is a subscription, right? So if someone churns, like I want to know that percentage. That's all that I think is important. One of the things that we discussed that I think is nice to have is the ability to send an invoice from Slack, and this is probably where a little bit of AI comes in. So I think the most the most beautiful version of this product would be something to the effect of, I have a Slack bot and I send a message along the lines of send an invoice to x at x.com for $299, then wait 3 months and then charge $300 a month every month until I tell you to stop. And then it says, hey, I've done that. And then it does it. I think that would be like the most beautiful version of this product. But obviously that requires AI to interpret what you're saying. It might have to ask some questions because obviously if it gets it wrong, it's payment, so it's a problem. But I just think that sending an invoice from Slack is super simple and also just beautiful to do. And I think it's very useful to our target market. Let's go through this. The next thing that I think, if I just have a look at this, is quite important is, again, I think in the future we can have this, is reasons for churn. This is another thing, is like when someone cancels a subscription, you have to use a whole bunch of other extra software to try and figure out like why they're churning. I work with so many SaaS brands at the moment, and literally built into their flow is when someone cancels, it redirects them to a type form, which essentially asks them, why are you canceling? And then I would literally say 80% of the people don't complete the form because they've already done what they wanted to do, which was cancel the payment. And even if they do, then from a marketing standpoint, I know because I run their marketing teams, it's now very complicated because now we have to try and match the type form with the user's email address to figure out what's going on. And then we have a billing system, which is how long have they been a client? Because we're trying to compare, like if someone churns after a year of using us, that's a lot worse than if someone churns after 20 days. I think it's way better to put the questionnaire for churn before the confirmation of cancellation. That way people have to complete it. And then it's in one place and it's tied to the user and it's tied to the revenue. So we know what's going on. That I think is super, super, super important, that I don't understand why softwares haven't done that. What else did we do? The next thing that I think, again, nice to have is pre-calculating or actually I'm just going to say not pre, but really calculating payment plans. So this is also super simple. Let's say I have a product for $10,000 and I'm on a sales call and the guy says, hey, can I do 3 payments? I want to just be able to say a field payment plan, enter the number of payments, 3, enter the interest, because if you're going to do a payment plan, you should absolutely charge an interest for it, like 10%. And then the software just calculates it, which is basic math. It's not complicated to do, but it just makes it very easy to do that from a sales rep standpoint. And currently, like, you'll be amazed at how many reps just miscalculate things, or they have things in spreadsheets and they don't know what's going on. And it just becomes, a hassle. The next thing I think is just, good branding, I think is important. Part of what we'll do probably just now is I have a couple brands that I like. I mentioned that I like Monday from a like designing the payment flow thing. I like Typeform from the form standpoint. I'll go through some designs that I like in a bit. Let's have a look at this. So we've got Stripe payments only. We've got the PDF thing. We've got the payment page. We've got the native notifications. I've got payment rules stuff. Another thing that I think is we have to be cheap. We discussed this and we sort of said we're going to do $10 a month, just because I think that's lower than a lot of the competitors, despite the fact that we have a better product. And every business has to pay for invoicing software. So like this is a nonchalant expense, and this will be per user. So obviously they'll have sales teams and stuff in there, which is quite nice. So invoice, obviously another core feature is just going to be like forecasting / management. So it's basically like we want to know like how much revenue are we going to collect this month. One of the things, and again, I'm going to put this probably as a nice to have, is what I would personally like, because at the moment I have to rebuild this in spreadsheets and stuff, which is very annoying, is a revenue per day forecast calculator. So what do I mean by that, right? When you have people sign up for your SaaS or even for your info product, if it's on subscription, you know when their billing date is going to be. I'm envisioning a calendar view where I can see every day almost like a bar graph of how much revenue I was supposed to capture on that day versus how much I actually did, because either they churned or their cards failed or whatever happened there. And then I would like to see the bar of captured payments laid on top of the expected payments to see the difference. And then I can look at my entire month and say, hey, tomorrow I'm going to capture $2,000. Tomorrow I'm going to capture $5,000. Like basically just see that out. And then as you acquire more users, it's obviously growing because it is forecasting further and further. Because then you have your forecasted revenue for the year, the month, the quarter, which is very useful if you want to go to investors and stuff. And also it allows you to spot trends. I think School did something like this where they have like a graph of engagement on days. And the more engaged people are, the greener that day goes. This is what I'm saying, because one of the things that I've noticed with clients is there's usually an event that causes big churn. For example, the first week of every month is a high churn period for most SaaS businesses because people do their finances for last month and realize they paid for a bunch of shit. So you want to be able to look for trends in churn. I think that is quite cool. But again, further down the line, what I mean by forecasting is just like, what is your MRR, what is your AR, and then just management, which is like, can you see a list of all the people who are currently subscribed? And then obviously you can cancel their stuff. Someone says, hey, I want to cancel, just like people need to be able to cancel the payments and things like that. I'm going to put it in the yellow thing is basically self-service. So for example, if I'm selling a $300 a month info product and someone wants to cancel, I don't want them to have to send me a message, hey, can I cancel? It's not worth my time or my sales rep's time doing that. There must just be like a page, which is their page with their credit card and their subscriptions, and they can cancel it if they want. They can update their credit card. They can do stuff like that. I just think that is quite useful to have. So let's go through this. Let's have a look at these two products, make sure that I think it's also important to make sure that we haven't missed anything. So invoices, that's fine. Subscriptions, we've spoken about that. Sale pages is basically like funnels, but this is like you can build it once, which I don't want to do. I want to build it every single time because everyone's different. This is a list of clients. I don't think that it's necessary to put this in here. Again, we want to focus on payments. This is like almost trying to build like a CRM thing inside here, which I don't think is important. Reports we've spoken about. Theirs is ugly. So that's them. Then you have pay funnels. And if you look at their features, one-time charges, that's invoices, subscriptions, payment plans. We spoke about that. This is their funnel thing. Oh, another big thing I think is, of course, we need the Zapier thing. It's just online business, it's important that we have that. And then SSL, I don't know why that's a feature. That should be a standard. Desktop and mobile. I don't think that I was playing with the idea of building a progressive web app so that way you can have an app without building an app. But I think if we're going to do the Slack stuff, I don't know if we need this, at least not now. Okay, Stripe, fine. International currency, that's like a basic thing with Stripe. So I think we have all of that. If I just go through the scenarios that I want to do, the only other scenario is paid trial. This is another weird thing. I ran into this issue the whole of yesterday, and I don't know, I actually wanted Daniel's opinion if you've ever run into this issue, but I want to offer a $1 7-day trial for my info product. So they pay $1. The reason why I want them to pay $1 is because I want to capture their card. Then I want to have a sales call with them after the 7 days and say, hey, are you good to go? The person says yes. I'm like, great, I've just charged your card. Because the friction comes in with them having to enter their details. And it's super simple. I've tried this with loads of clients across the board. It works phenomenally well. But there currently is no way to do this. Like in Stripe, if you try and create a trial, it doesn't allow you to charge for a trial. It only makes it free. No other softwares allow you, from my research, to actually charge a low amount for a trial. And so basically I want, $1, give them access to certain things. After 7 days, charge them the full amount. If the charge doesn't go through, then remove their access. So a paid trial is a use case that I'm looking for that I can't find. This is the core mechanics of the product, just sending and invoicing and a funnel for a single amount. And then this is an example of that logic. And people can really get very creative with this. Like I've seen some people want to bill weekly. They don't want to bill monthly. Some people want to bill every 21 days. Like I think if we build this if else wait logic, honestly, it gives people the creativity to build whatever flows they want, right? You can get very complicated with this. I've seen a lot of people do very random stuff here. I think it's probably a good place to start. And then the basic things is just, one of the other things that I wanted to put here is log in with Google. So again, in the name of just being simple, I don't think we should build a whole auth flow where we get people to sign up, make users, passwords, store the passwords, whatever. I think if we just do login with Google, then it makes it a lot easier to build it. From that standpoint, Zapier is we can literally just make triggers. Again, to simplify this, I don't think we need to build a whole Zapier app. I think it's just trigger, which is like if a payment succeeds, then they can do stuff with it. They can give people access to their school group. They can give people access to their software, whatever. I think from our standpoint, we just need to provide a trigger. This spoke about cheap. Obviously, we're going to use Stripe ourselves. And also another thing that I want to say here is I genuinely think we should use ourselves in the onboarding. So like when someone signs up for the software, they should be entering their payment information in a form that we built in our software. I just think it's a unique thing here that is just quite cool. And it's just really good in my opinion from a marketing standpoint. And there's no reason why we cannot use this to do a software, because it's just, a software is just a monthly subscription. And then the part in the software they can cancel their subscription should be this self-service thing that we spoke about here. And their updating card and everything should also be that. Good branding, that's clean UI, etc. This is, again, that forecasting and management reporting. This is the core part of it. Slack notifications is also super simple. Stripe only, PDF, payment page. This is also super simple. And for this PDF, we can even leverage Stripe to do this, because Stripe does generate the invoices. The problem is with these other softwares is you have to go log into Stripe to find the invoices. And if you have customer support people, that's very difficult because customer support people don't have access to Stripe. They just have access to the billing stuff. And then it creates this chain of command where one of our SaaS clients, there was a big retainer that we were trying to refund. And it was a pain in the ass because the customer service people were dealing with it, but the people who had access to Stripe was obviously the founders. And then it created this mess in Slack trying to figure out who has access to what's going on. I think this is a good starting point. This is like my brain on a whiteboard. Daniel, what are your thoughts? I've got my.
It's funny because a lot of the pain points that you've discussed, we've actually been already building workarounds with some of the companies that we've been building. Like the paid trial, for example, the way we solved this was charging a client a certain amount of money, because Stripe has like a threshold of how much you can charge. Yeah, I believe like the lowest you can go is like 30 or 40 cents. So you charge that money and then you refund it instantly. But that also fucks up the actual Stripe
Reporting.
statistics, because then it then it looks like you've been refunding a lot of customers, etc. So it's a bit of a pain, and we have to find like a workaround. But I mean, it's good how clear you have the product. The next step is really to just, I mean, we start with a proper PDF invoice. Like, there's obviously a lot more to the product where we need to onboard. When we say things such as good branding, this is there's multiple perspectives to that. Like, are we making sure that there's good branding from a customer facing perspective? Is there a good branding in itself for us as simple invoicing.io? I think there's a lot to define, but this is a really good start. I mean, you got it really down on how you wanted. I think things such as the reporting by sender, month, product churn, obviously need to define this much more clear, because I think it's not there yet. But that's kind of like obviously what my job is, to, based of this kind of brain dump that we're looking at, to actually turn that into what we always do is a product flow diagram that just really shows the entire flow of the product, like what's going to happen. And we nowadays only use authenticators to log in. Like, we never ever build like an actual login email password capture. It's always just through authentication, which could be whatever, Twitter, LinkedIn, could be Google, could be any kind of like adopted platform, where we can even, because the good thing about authentication is that we can even capture data in here and already start pre-filling stuff, which is like a very small detail, but it's just really it's just nice, because once you authenticate, you already have information about the user. It could be Daniel at simplepayments.io, and I connect, and they already suggest that the company is Simple Invoicing. Like, those are logical suggestions, which is very easy to just implement, and you're already pushing the extra mile, even though it's an MVP, because it's not necessarily a bigger of a lift, because you can already pull that data through one of these authentications. So there's a lot of nice things that we can just do when building out this MVP. I think the next step is really to turn this into an actual flow diagram, where we say, hey, this is where we start, this is the next step, then we want to do this, and we should definitely take a look at simple invoices and pay funnels, and use that as a reference to how we want this to apply, and take the good out of their products and make it our own, and obviously apply all of the features and requirements that we have from all perspectives, from speed, simplicity, good design, and also just the actual impact that it has for businesses. So I think this was a really good session. Let me see. I already put together some some basic stuff like this. For example, some of the APIs that I thought of. This is like a flow builder that companies such as Typeform use, and everything. Very easy to integrate, very easy to use. So started to put those things in. Do you want to tackle defining the actual product in this session as well? Because I do have we only scheduled this call for an hour, and I have a hard stop because I have a call with my team. But
how do you normally do this with clients? So, like, I've given you this brain dump. Do you normally take this and go away and create some flows, and then we come back and review the flows and go from there? Or, I mean, you tell me. I think if we have a hard stop, I think the only other information if I was in your shoes, I would like to receive from me is maybe if I just brain dump some brands that I like, just like some inspiration that I want to take, some websites. And then I think maybe then you have like the feature list, you have like, okay, this is sort of like what he wants things to look like. Then I think maybe you go away and wireframe it, or just turn it into a flow map. And then while you're doing that, you break away like, yeah, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do this. I don't understand this, whatever. And then we have a call and we review that, and then we tackle that. And then
exactly. So the way that usually would work. Yeah, no, 100%. No, the way we usually work is we first just extract the idea, we get the vision. Once we have that, that's when we're really going to have the team bite themselves into this. We're going to do a little bit of technical research. We're going to, figure out, does this make sense to put this in the MVP? This does not make sense. This does make sense. And we turn that into an actual flow diagram. So I'm just going to jump in this with my team. To go through this, watch the recording, and then we're going to turn this into actually something that we can present in the coming call that you and I can go over, which is essentially just showing how the product is going to work from a eagle eye perspective with, potentially even some wireframes or just very, very basic stuff just to show you, hey, this is what it's going to look like. This is, how much time it's going to cost on our end.
Cool. I agree. I think that's the best way to do it. And then we also keep it short and concise for the people watching. So we got 5 minutes left for this. I'm just going to dump like some inspiration then. So as I said, Monday.com, I like the way that they've done a sentence like this. As far as building out the payment flow, I think that's super. Yeah. I think people understand how to write sentences, so it's very natural. And then you have the options at the bottom. I think that that's quite cool. Lemlist, I like essentially what they've done with just very clean and very like minimalist UI. I think, I'm just going to take a screenshot of this. I think they've done a good job there. So I'll just drop Lemlist in. Typeform, the actual forms are quite useful. If I can find an example of one. This is a bad example, but I mean, you guys know Typeform, so I'm just going to include that in there. Just drop things in. Typeform, I think, is quite unique. I'm not putting text on what these softwares are because I think we'll have the recording and your team will be able to pull from it.
Yeah.
Another one that I really like is Close. This is the CRM that I use every day. I recommend it to all of our SaaS clients. Their software, they've done something that's actually quite hard with building a CRM because there is a lot of shit inside a CRM. But they've made it very simple and very clean. And you can see that there's thought gone into how it looks and how it works. And so, that is a prime example of something. So Close and Lemlist, I like their bubble UI, clean. Actually prefer Close more, I think, if you look at their colors and whatever. This is probably not the best screenshot, but if you just go to close.com, you can see how they've done things. Monday, I like, the flow here. Typeform, I like the essentially the form for churn. Lemlist, again, something super simple. Magic Beans, I haven't heard of this. But one of the examples that I was going to use, let me just actually do an incognito, is Tally. So both of us are users of Tally. Daniel, I know, is a very big Notion fan. So I'm going to grab them as well. I think they've also done a really good job of something like simple. So if I look at these two examples, what you've got there, which is really, really cool, Magic Beans, Tally, Close, Lemlist, Monday. Monday, I don't really like the design. I just like the logic. But I think the combination of these three things really cements sort of what I'm looking for. I like Close's color stuff. So I'm going to come back to Close just because I like their brand colors. So if you have a look at their stuff, they've got really three colors. They've got black or four colors: black, white, this blue, and then this red. That kind of forms their whole design palette. Their font is very bold and very clean. I don't like Montserrat and like difficult fonts. They just use Inter, which is the Google font for everything. Everything's bold. Everything's very clean. It's unlike, like if you go to something, we used HubSpot as an example. But like if you go here, it's just the opposite of Close. Like I don't know what font this is. There's a lot of colors, a lot of things going on. Like it's just like even to scroll here, there's just like look at all this shit. There's like a lot going on.
Yeah.
And then you get here and it's very bold, clean. As you read it, it's kind of like clear what you're looking at. I think they've done a good job there. Cool. Let me stop sharing. Daniel, is there anything else that you need from me before our next session?
What I'll do is I'll try and see if I can actually record the sessions that I'll have with my team because I know that those are going to be very insightful as well. And I'll also try and see if we can potentially even get some of my designers to record them putting this together and designing everything, and potentially even some stuff on the dev side. I think it'd be incredibly cool to also highlight that. Other than that, I think you've done a really good job on just writing this out and getting your vision on paper within this first session. Trust me when I say that you've done a good job. There's people that come to me with, I want this, and that's it. So you already you're making my life extremely easy, which is great. I'm gonna revert with my team and get back to you, and then we just have to plan our next session in line with how fast we can get this done, which is very likely a few days. And then we can go through it all.
Cool. So I think, so everyone knows, to tie them to the next episode, to recap. So Daniel's going to take all this and essentially break it down into a flow chart of like the onboarding flow, like actually break this down into like step 1, 2, 3 if someone was to use it. Obviously he's got an incredible team behind him. So if they record stuff, that's fantastic. And then we'll add that all into the next recording. On my side, I'm going to build a landing page, very simple, very clean. It's probably actually just going to be a tally form. And I'm just going to start making a post, maybe running some ads and just generating interest with some mockups, and start building essentially a waiting list and also chatting to people. So I'm going to build that. As I go through building that, I'll also do my recordings with my team and stuff. And then the next one, we'll have another Fig Jam like this, and we'll review what Daniel's got for us. And then in that next call, we'll add his team's background recordings, my team's background recordings, and then we'll just kind of go step by step. And I think also we should do a session sometime just talking about like how we decided on equity and finance and just like that stuff. Like, how did we set up this? I think that would be useful.
Yeah, I mean, I think the cool way to go about this really is just, I mean, we're building this, and I think you and I need to sync regardless. And I think it'd be really cool if you just, just keep that going, and then just explain like why we're doing what we're doing. I think, the next call is really going to be, because obviously there was like the first call, we made the introduction. I think, a good 20% of the call was about us introducing ourselves, with the leftover 80% about, the vision that you have. I think the next time is going to be a lot more just us actually, brainstorming about, okay, this is the idea, more clear, this is the next step, and this is what we're going to do, etc. Where there's probably going to be stuff that we agree on, stuff that we don't agree on. And I think, even when, in regards to the details about, incorporations or how we manage finances or whatever, or how the equity structure is done, we should definitely, potentially plan just a session for that.
Awesome. Well, Daniel's actually quite sick, so thank you for being here and bringing the energy. Super excited for building this and putting this together. And we'll see everyone in the next session.